My mom was born in Germany. She was born in Frankfurt in 1933. During the war, my grandfather held various positions within the government, and so they moved around a lot, oftentimes to avoid the bombing. After the war, my mom decided that she wanted to study nursing, so she went to Scotland. She later decided that she wanted to come to the U.S., and that was in about like 1958, I believe. And her father was very opposed to it. He did not like Americans. He still held a lot of bitterness because of the war. She came to the States anyway. She came to the U.S., she moved to New York City, and she became a nanny for a Jewish family, a wealthy Jewish family. And while she lived in New York, she decided to become Catholic because my mom had been raised Lutheran, which was very typical of most educated Germans. And so that's how she came to the States. My mom decided while she was in New York that she wanted to serve in the intelligence services. And specifically, she wanted to become an interpreter, a German interpreter for the armed services. My father had joined the Air Force while he was in the Philippines, and it was very common at that time for natives to join the American Armed Services because it became a way for them to come to America. My mom met my dad. It's kind of a funny story because my dad is from the Philippines and my mom is from Germany, and they met in Denver. And he was an aircraft mechanic. So he worked in the shop. My mom worked in the air traffic control tower as the weather girl, and that's how they met. In fact, my mom was dating my dad's best friend. Yeah, Mario was born in Denver, and then after he was born, my mom and dad relocated to the Philippines, and that's where I was born. So I was born in '61, and my sister Sharon was born in '63, and then we have a younger half-sister, Cookie, who was born I think in '65, but with a different mom. We came stateside, and we moved to Warner Robins Air Force Base in Macon, Georgia. My parents had been married for about 15 years, and I was in the 5th grade at the time. We were living in Vacaville, California. Before my parents had divorced, they essentially separated. So even though they weren't divorced, they were apart, and my mom really took care of us kids by herself. My mom finally filed for divorce because my dad had just one too many affairs that she just couldn't tolerate it anymore. We were living in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco, in an area what's now referred to as south of Market. And we had been evicted from our apartment for whatever reason, I don't remember. We were homeless. My mom had nowhere to go. I mean, we had nowhere to go. We left the apartment. My mom had a station wagon, and we went over to a white front store, which is on Market Street, close to the Castro district. We've actually driven past it many times. It's got a little arch over it. I remember very clearly what it looks like. And I remember my mom going into the store with us 4 kids. We're sitting in the car. She drives to the store. She leaves us in the car. She goes into the store and gets a loaf of bread. And she comes back out and she hands us each a slice of bread to eat. And she's crying. My mom met Brian through a mutual friend, Richard Artery. And Richard was a friend of my mom's. He was gay, which at the time was very unusual, and openly so. My mom met Brian Reeve, through Richard. Brian was just a kid. I mean, he was a kid. He was like 19. Brian is 20 years my mom's junior. There's a 20-year difference between them. Brian and my mom decided to get married, and so they did. And so here's this kid. I mean, he's a kid marrying a woman 20 years older than him, with kids who are only like 5 to 8 years younger than him. Right? So it was a very unusual situation. My mom and Brian decided that it would be a good idea for them to come to Salt Lake because Brian was from Salt Lake City. Yeah, we were a dysfunctional family. It was not. It wasn't a really good. It wasn't a good situation at all. My parents, my mom and Brian, eventually moved to Bicknell, Utah, southern Utah. And the reason they moved down there was because Brian's father, Lynn, owned some property in Loa.
I was working 3 jobs. I was a sophomore in high school, and one of the things I remember doing is going to see where it used to be a waitress at Dee's restaurants. We didn't have anything, we didn't have any money. And we'd come in and you were always like the king. She would show you around, she'd introduce you, but this is my son, this is my kids, these are what, and so she always talked about you. She always talked about you, and there was always a cup of hot chocolate, There's always a cup of hot chocolate. That's a hard one. It was always comforting because it didn't matter your day, it didn't matter her day. You knew she was proud and happy to see you, and always came with a cup of hot chocolate. In many ways, lucky because I wasn't here to see cancer take its toll on her. I lived overseas at the time. I lived in Japan when she passed away, and prior to that I lived in California, so I wasn't here at the time that she had gotten ill. I remember something about her saying that her arm had begun to hurt. And I said, I don't care what the doctors say, I want to hear from you. And he called me back within the day, and he says, you need to come home. He said prayers with her, and then she lapsed into a coma and passed. She hung on for a little bit. People can just withdraw into themselves and or become bitter themselves and stuff, but she never was. She never was. She never complained. I would have a stepdad, her husband, Brian, your grandpa Brian would be drunk off his butt, and she never complained to us. She just worked so she could provide for us, because somebody had to do it. And she was always the one to do it. Whether it was Grandpa Mariano or Grandpa Brian, she was always the one to do it. She made it work. The thing that makes me smile about Grandma is that she touched a lot of people in a lot of ways. And one of my sayings that one of my sayings is to make a difference. That's one of my sayings. It's part of my prayer every day when I go to work. I always pray, I always add in there, just make a difference in somebody's life. And that's the thing that makes me smile, is that she made a difference in so many people's lives, and they were people that she didn't know, people she didn't have things in common, people she had things in common with. It didn't matter. She always made a difference. I was kind of a tough kid, the kind that would throw a temper tantrum or something if I didn't get my way. But she was always there. She was always there. Whether it was wrong or right, she comforted me. I would dream about her, and I still do, even after all these years. When I wake up, I hold on to those dreams. You know how when you forget a dream, and you try to hold on, it was something about me falling or something like that, right? When I have a dream about her, it's the same thing. Because I hold on to her because she's there. When you see what she went through, and then how she always kept things positive, and she always put people first and stuff. I mean, how can you not look at that and say that there's some sort of angel?
I could tell you a ton of things about my mom. She was probably the most giving person you'll ever meet in your whole entire life. She was a hard worker and my best friend. My best memories are when I was sick. I know that sounds weird, but when I was sick, I had my mom's 100% full attention. I have to share her with my brothers or my sister, and she would always fall asleep, let me fall asleep with her hand on my face. So, comforted me, and she always bought me treats from the store, and it was just, I don't know, it was like this special connection. So, it was when I was sick. She was your typical riches to rags story, but still died happy and full of riches, because it was riches from compassion and love. If I was a good mom, if I was as good of a mom as she was, am I teaching my daughter the same values in life that she's taught me. That's probably the only question I would ask her.
Well, she showed me how to cook. That's good. She was a very hard worker. You know, I always tell my kids that, you know, Grandma Jeannie started 3 jobs and she used to just take care of us, and I just thought she was a good worker. She was a good example to me, just how much she loved me. I always tell my girls about how she'd make that chocolate rice. She'd have the rice cooker and like the second we didn't have any food. So she'd make chocolate rice and just make the rice and she put like chocolate syrup and something. We'd have that for dinner sometimes. I do regret not bringing Michael to the hospital to come see her. But it was so weird. It's like the whole time she was in her coma, she talked about Michael. Grandma Jeannie like blinked her eyes. Now I know I wouldn't be here. I'd still be in the Philippines if it wasn't for her. I probably wouldn't be alive.
To me, she was always smiling. So her beauty was not only on the outside, but it was on the inside. So when she would smile, it would just light up her face. And I recall a time that we were shopping with her and she was like a little girl. She was so cute and so just smiley and happy, and we were looking for glasses for her. Very pretty brown eyes and a beautiful smile. I miss most that she couldn't be here to be with you kids, to be with, to experience all the grandkids for that matter, but where our family's concerned, for sure, like being able to spend time with you and for all of us to learn more about her background. I just miss having her here to be with our family and enjoy all the different things that our families have been through, and all the little triumphs and the laughter and the fun that we've been able to have together, but had to have it without her. But I just know that she's here in spirit, so that's what matters the most.
I met Bob's mom. We had been dating for a couple months, and she lived in an apartment out in West Valley. And the first thing that I remember that it comes to me that I think about it was just how warm she is. She has such a beautiful soul about her that you knew instantly you could be friends with her. She just gave off that vibe. She was just awesome that way. She knew how to make people laugh. Like I said, she was very positive most of the time and very happy when I was with her. So she made you want to be positive. She made you want to be happy. We laughed a lot, her and I. And she laughed at her children all the time. There was always, in her laugh, being that German accent and hearing that laugh, there's nothing like it. A memory I have of Jean is when she lived down in Bignell and southern Utah, and her and Brian and Bob and I and Sharon and Greg went down for Easter to spend Easter with her. And we went down, and she had made up a room with 2 double beds in it. It was a big room. It had 2 double beds in it, which is made up beautiful. And she put baskets on each of the beds, 4 baskets, just for us. And put special things in them for us. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, she is so terrific. Who would think of this? You know, we're coming to be with her and she's thinking of us. She'd probably turn over right now in her grave with me telling the story, but we didn't know at the time, but we were told later after they had done scans that she had a stroke. And she was just kind of funny. She was being really weird and talking a lot of German, expressing herself, going back to when she was a child, thoughts, you know, like she was a child again. And she ripped off all her clothing and ran around the hospital floor with no clothing. And I'm chasing after her, and the nurses and the technicians. We were covered. So I got a big blanket and covered her up, and we got her to calm down and come back and lay down and put something on her. But I remember that thinking, oh my gosh. One of the memories I have of Jean when she was in the hospital that just warmed my heart and made me believe of the wonderful relationship I had with her was coming to the hospital to visit her. And she hadn't woken up. She had not, she'd gone in and out of consciousness. And the doctor, the brain doctor, the neurologist was in to see her. And I walked in, and your dad walked ahead, and of course everyone kissed her on the forehead, and she laid there. And she kind of fluttered her eyes, and I stood at the end of the footboard. And she flipped up and looked at me, and she goes, April! And she just had the biggest smile on her face. And then she closed her eyes. And that was so special to me because that was a gift. It was a gift she gave to me. I felt so special with her. And again, that just tells you how wonderful she was. One other memory a memory I have of Jean on the night or the last night I'd seen her and been with her, was Mario and Jackie and myself and Bob had gone out to dinner. And there was family we knew at the hospital with her, and we would take breaks and stuff, staying with her, but we knew it was getting to the end and we were tired. We were exhausted. Everyone was. And so we got a call from, I can't remember who at the moment, we were at Jolly Square, and saying that it doesn't look good. Mom's not going to make it. Jean's not going to make it. And so Mario and Bob got in a separate car and raced to the hospital, at LDS Hospital, ahead of Jackie and I, because I said, you need to get there. They need to get there. So Jackie and I agreed that we'd follow, but we'd come up, but they need to race up there. So they did. They went up ahead, and Jackie and I came, and by that time we got there, they were with her, and they loved her and expressed their love to her, and a very special moment. They had alone time with her and together, and so they had left, and together, Bob and Mario, and Jackie and I were left alone with her. And I just remember holding her hand and talking to her, because I really believe that she could hear. She could hear us very well. She knew we were there, even though she couldn't respond. And I'm sure for her it was so frustrating, I'm sure. I felt very strong to express to her my thoughts of my love for her and my appreciation for her. Jean and I knew each other before, and we had a bond, and I just felt it from her. So I leaned over and I kissed her on her forehead, and I told her how much I loved her, and that it was okay. It was okay to let go. That she would be at peace, and that heaven is a beautiful place, and that she would love it, and she could see her loved ones. And I made a promise to her. We used to joke, her and I, about the worry button that was given to us when we have children. And I always joke, no, I worry more about Bob, and she'd go, no, I do, because I'm the mother. And we would kind of have this little inside joke. And so I told her, I said, I'm taking the worry button. It's all mine. And I'll take care of your Bobby and your grandchildren. So it's okay, Jean. It's okay. And Jackie was there and knows this. She expressed the same thoughts. And we both witnessed tears from her eyes. And that was very special for us, because we knew she was listening. And we left with a little bit of peace, knowing that we had expressed and told her it was okay. And it was the next day, like early morning, or in the middle of the night. It was the middle of the night that we were told she had passed. I'm so blessed and so lucky to meet such a fabulous woman and to be able to call her mom. She's got some great kids, beautiful kids that have done some great things, and I know it's because of her. It just is another example of what a wonderful woman she was. And I look forward to the day when I see her again. And we'll embrace and we'll laugh.
Ursula. How you feeling, Ted?
Say daddy.
Daddy. Daddy. Say forget it. Don't even think about it.
Okay. No. It's not for you. Oh, this time Grandma said no. Oh, this is a disgusting development, isn't it?